myself.
Hi, this is Elaine Starling. I'm the host of Why 5% Succeed, and I am so excited to have you here with us today. We are covering all these great ideas and tips from very successful entrepreneurs and small business owners who have found 4 different ways to improve the return on investment they deliver for their clients. And you know what's really interesting? When you show your clients the money, that's when you start making the money. So today we've got a fabulous guest here. Her name is Cary Broussard. She's the head of Broussard Global. And she's just got these most amazing ideas about how you can bring a really unique position to your business through your outreach. And I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm going to let you hear it straight from Cary. Cary, welcome. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you, Elaine. It's my pleasure.
Well, I always learn so much from our conversations, and I can't wait to get started. So, of course, the first thing I like to talk about is the rewarding experience. Now, what is it that the media most wants and most needs from us as small business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, first and foremost, the media is in an ever-changing state, and in that ever-changing state, there's much involved. But media, real true journalists, and when I say real true journalists, that even is kind of up for grabs. But journalism is about truth and transparency and news. And so every journalist really, really technically wants news. They want value and they want resources. And that's where we're going to talk about today, is not only about how to build your brand with the media, but also how you can become a resource to the media as a valuable business person or organization.
That's great. And I know that you put together some special information just for our viewers. And at the end of the show, we're going to tell them how they can get a copy of your special presentation, because you provide a ton of extra information there. And I just want to keep going because you've got some great ideas to share today. So what are some examples of things that would be considered newsworthy or valuable to a journalist, something that would catch their eye and help us as small business owners stand out from the crowd?
Well, and you know, that standing out from the crowd is, gosh, in today's world, harder than ever. And it was always hard, you know. And for those of us who have been in public relations and or been part of the media over the years, it's always been competitive. Well, now it's more competitive than ever. And it is competitive because there are algorithms involved. As a matter of fact, I'll come back to algorithms in a moment, but I wanted to just give everybody a little note of how the change in media has occurred. The New York Times just laid off another 24 people in their business office. They're about to eliminate 100 more positions. The head of the New York Times is actually saying he has more journalists in the total headcount today than ever before. So with even hundreds of positions being cut, there's actually the same number of people. So 1,300 people actually still work for the New York Times, and that's a larger number than before. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because news is still so much a part of branding. But also in branding, whether you want a short-term flash in the pan or a long-term flash in the pan, there's a middle ground now. And a middle ground is utilizing the fact that there are algorithms in place. For instance, on Facebook, Facebook has 1.3 billion people in the space of Facebook users. That's the same size as China. And so what's happening with that algorithm that's so prevalent with, if anybody on the call is a Facebook user, and I think probably 99% of us are, there's a trending bar now on the side of your Facebook page. Well, that's a new feature that Facebook is bringing to individuals, to the media, and to brands. But what that does do now, that makes for all the media out there and the citizen journalists, that means those trending topics are trending topics that, if you want to get your news out, that you want to be part of those trending topics. So that's really affected the news, and that's really affected the way news is delivered to you and me, and the way our brands need to be positioned, especially as smaller brands. If we are, if we're not Pepsi-Cola, or we're not Schlitz beer. I don't know why I picked Schlitz beer. Where did that come from? If you're not a beer company, if you're not a company with a big advertising budget, you have to stand out. And so to answer your question, it's not as easy as it used to be, I guess, Elaine. We have to be smarter. We have to, as small business owners, understand what our point of difference is, and we have to understand the technology platforms, and we have to understand how to build relationships with the media and on social media platforms.
That is great. And I loved what you said about following the trends, because that's something we can all access, whether it's on Facebook or checking out Google Trends. They're there, and it's easy for you to find them. So if you attach what your topic is to whatever that trending topic is, you're much more likely to be noticed. Now, Cary, there's another concept that you share, and a lot of people have used the term social currency. And often it's in association with your social media networks and how many followers you have, and that tribe, so to speak. You've got a slightly different take on social currency. Would you please share that with everybody?
Sure, Elaine. I have always used the term cause marketing, or cause-related marketing, purpose-driven branding, and really the term social currency makes a lot of sense. I have not used it technically myself, but I think because people are so attuned to social venture capitalism and social media, the two are connected, I think, in social currency, but I think it could be potentially misleading to some. But let's just say, it's a term that can be used to describe what we're trying to do besides just sell our product. We are in business as a cause-related company, for instance. Broussard Global is, because we want to help clients who are doing good things for the community, for their employees, for their customers. It's not just about, I want to sell more razor blades, and I want to be only adherent to my shareholders. There's a movement we actually are very involved in called conscious capitalism. That's another term. Whole Foods is a big proponent. As a matter of fact, John Mackey wrote a book called Conscious Capitalism based on this concept with Raj Sisodia. I want to give him credit also. And what they do, it could be very similar to a social currency, is they have 5 stakeholders they talk about. It's the customer, it's the community, it's your employee, it's your partnership, your vendors, and of course it's also your shareholders. So if you treat all 5 of those stakeholders equally as a business in particular, there's data, strong data, that shows that companies who do this are much more profitable than their competitors. Southwest Airlines would be an example, Trader Joe's, as I mentioned, Whole Foods, all very profitable companies. I think Zappos would fall into that category as well, and there are many, many others. I hope I
That's
answered
great.
your
No, you totally answered the question, and thank you. That's a really great synopsis because these terms get used all the time, and people don't always understand what you're talking about. But especially since you have
question.
an expertise around cause-related marketing, and we as small business owners, we think, okay, yeah, but what do I have to offer some big nonprofit that I'm going to be able to connect with what they're up to and get some exposure in the media? But that does happen, right? And I want us to move on to talk about the second thing, which is relationships. I'm still learning how to use these
Yeah.
overlays, and I never go the right direction. Okay, relationships. So when it comes to relationships, what are the expectations that the media have of us to be good PR partners? Are there certain protocols that the pros know that the average business person just isn't really clued into? Are there some tips or tools that you can recommend for us to be good partners with the media?
Yes. As a matter of fact, and by the way, you are the go-to person for Google Hangouts if there ever was somebody. So thank you to you and your team. I mean, what a great tool to use to reach the media and to reach your customer and to reach your stakeholders. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you doing this today and showing all of us a lot about what we can do with Google Hangouts. So building relationships, again, is pretty big. In human relationships, we want to be respectful. We want to do the research on the media, who we want to target. We want to find out about them, find out where, I'm sorry, I'm pushing forward on the camera. We want to find out what content they're interested in. We want to find out what their deadlines are. We want to also find out in particular, because you could spend all day long, all month long, 24 hours, 24/7 researching media, but you want to find out who's interested in your subject matter. And it's better to start smaller than larger, although the platforms that can be used to send out a press release, of course, in a large way can be sent with all the social media and search engine optimization opportunities. There's a way to blanket a wide array of journalists or citizens journalists as well, bloggers, everything you can think of, somebody that would write about your subject matter. You can certainly, reach 1,000 people, and I'm just picking 1,000 off the top of my head, who might be interested in your subject matter. However, it may be more effective to build relationships more one-on-one or one-on-5, if you will. I'd rather have 5 to 10 to 15 to 50 good relationships in the media or with bloggers and or some other type of platform that a media person who's interested in my subject matter is using, so that my message reaches the right people. We, for instance, use it's a platform, or it's a resource, I should say, called Harrow, and I know, Elaine, you've heard of this and used it. Help a reporter out. And Harrow, the way we use that is to find out what media are out there and what subject matters they are interested in. I'm not going to contact somebody who's interested about food and beverage if I'm promoting my client who's in wealth management. Now, I will give an example of a client who her target market is the financial world. So we went on Twitter, we found out who was tweeting about the subject matter that we wanted to promote for this client. We built relationships, Googled them, found out as much as we could about their publications, what kind of deadlines they're on, basically, how to help them in their jobs. And we used email, we used telephone calls, and we used Twitter. Some of them are on Facebook. We use LinkedIn, all the platforms that you know about. But the best one in particular, our client, Cary Broussard, who wrote a book called The Complete Family Office Handbook. which some could say, what? But there's a whole audience of media out there who know what that is. But their audience isn't necessarily at all on social media, but they're listening to NPR. So we were able to get that particular client a great story on NPR Marketplace because it was so completely targeted, but we had to pitch the story. And it was, in some ways, it was actually not necessarily just a round peg and a round hole. We had to come up with an angle that particular NPR reporter was interested in, and guess what? The story was recorded. They went down to Florida and interviewed her, and then that story didn't run for 3 months. So for 3 months, I didn't pick up the phone every week, even though perhaps my client wished I had. I didn't pick up the phone and bother that reporter. It was just like the story was in the can, but it wasn't running. And so that's a fine line too. And again, it's kind of common courtesy. I was in a meeting last night where somebody said, "Oh my gosh, is that person using that particular PR agency?" And I was with a group of journalists, and they all told story after story about how this PR firm just bugged all the what out of them. And they're like, "She makes my day so hard because she's calling me and pressuring me." So you don't want that reputation.
You're really leading into my next question, because I wanted to find out what are some really good tips to maintain a good relationship with journalists. Obviously, don't bug them all the time. Try to provide really good, useful, insightful, relevant articles and information for them to do a story around. But what is the protocol? How much is too much?
Well, I think most journalists, and we're talking, journalists work for a publication that's their core is to produce journalistic output. They pretty much do their own research, but if you have news, like to send them another article from another writer isn't necessarily, that's not a good thing to do in most cases, because that's like, here's what your competition is doing. You got to know that person pretty well. If you don't know that reporter very well and you're trying to build a relationship with that particular reporter, retweeting their tweets is a good thing to your audience because it shows that you're following them, replying to them in some way. If you have a question about something they've already written about, building some rapport with them before you, boom, and this is a perfect world because the budgets aren't huge always and we don't have always the right time. If you do, boom, hit them with some news right away, at least be gracious about it and say, "I know you're busy. I wanted you to see this because I think it would be of interest to you." And then follow up with an email. Primarily, most reporters are interested in an email versus a phone call, although once you get to the point where, you're talking, phone calling, even texting, if they, allow you to text them. And I say allow you because I would ask permission to text anybody.
That's great.
Did I answer your question?
You totally answered my question, and I want to reframe what you said just a little bit because I think it was so important, and I really want to emphasize this point that you just made, Cary, because it was a breakthrough moment for me. Oh, good. You can really help reporters when you give them instead of an explanation. So what I mean by that is, imagine, follow the bouncing ball. You've got the examples, you've got the research, you've got the data, you've got the components that lead you to an explanation. And if you start that way and you give them, here's some really interesting information, different facts, figures, third-party research to reference, case studies to look at, and anybody looking at that would probably come to the same conclusion, right? The explanation. You can provide the explanation at the end, but give them the opportunity to come to that idea, get the revelation themselves, and allow them to write an article based on the revelation that they've discovered. Because then it's really powerful, it's in their voice, and you provided them with really valuable, useful information.
I think providing them, to follow up with what you're saying, providing media with good video clips, good slides, infographics, those types of, even if they may ask you for that, a good photo of yourself, a good logo that, you know, maybe they're going to run your logo, who knows. The book cover of what I just mentioned, the Complete Family Office Handbook. The Good Ham Company is another one of our clients. For every 10 hams they sell, which is a good example of social currency, for every 10 hams they sell, they donate a ham to a food bank. And they have great photography. They have just really good visuals that can be utilized. And they've taken a lot of care in that. And they also provide background, like you said, Elaine, background on hormone-free, pasture-raised pigs that the ham comes from, you know, that the media want to know about, non-GMO, things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of background on. Be prepared for the questions, I guess, is the other thing. If you want to put yourself out there in front of the media, you got to be prepared for the good and the bad. So you want to figure out how to not have it bad, ideally. And a plan is the best way to offset any surprises from anyone, customer or media. And so I highly recommend a marketing communications plan that includes a crisis management plan.
You know, that's so smart. Prepare ahead and know what you want to say, what your talking points are, and also be prepared for people to come at you maybe with a negative approach to what you're doing, and how you can spin whatever it is they say and point out the key things that you're trying to communicate. That's a really good reminder. I'm going to have us move on to the third area where you create huge value, and that is reputation, and really enhancing your reputation and the reputation of your clients. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Cary, about how being in the media influences how you are perceived by others, by your peers and by your prospects.
And remind me of that question again after I say this one statement, because we do have a client who who doesn't use the media. And there are ways to craft your reputation in a way that is not in the media, or at least not in a way that you're sending out press releases or that you're on social media. And one of those ways is special events. Special events are actually a marketing tool. So I wanted to bring that up because, and one client in particular, Bank of Tokyo, does quite a bit of special event and sponsorship marketing. So they send their message by sponsoring particular events that attract their clients to those events, and send a message that we're also supportive of the community. So I think that's a very, if you leap to what you really want to achieve, is to build a reputation based on what your internal culture, positioning, and branding is. You want to make sure that your internal culture is transparent with what you're doing externally. And the internal culture of the Japanese Bank of Tokyo, which is actually going through lots of mergers and changes right now, that's how they approached their reputation management. It was an internal. We did a lot of internal work for them, still do, and also the sponsorship marketing of events. Then, Elaine, to go to your question, the reputation management specifically, that that can work for people, what I just mentioned. But reputation management online, ask me the question again so I'll make sure I answer it the way you want to.
That's fine. I think you made a really important point, which is you don't necessarily have to be in the media to get great exposure to your audience. And what you might think of as venues for exposure, different media that you could be in, that could actually be sponsoring somebody else's event. The key thing is to identify where can you find your ideal clients. Where do they hang out? And then make sure that you've got a presence wherever that is, whether it's a TV show, a radio program, a newspaper, a magazine, a website, a blog, whatever, an event. Be where they are, and that really helps enhance your reputation. Now, back to the other question I had for you, it's really about how being in the media can help differentiate you from others in your category. There are other people who are PR experts, but I would work with Cary because I've seen you in the media.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Elaine. Well, fundamentally, it is about doing a good job and having a plan that reaches your target audience. And like you said, you want to be where your audience is. But the fifth side marketing, that's the other part of Broussard Global that we encourage our clients to consider. That, you know, like a box, everybody has four sides, but the fifth side is your point of difference. It's what's really going to set you apart from the competition. And it has to be authentic. It has to be about you. You can't sell or market or build a reputation based on something you're not. And so it's really doing a deep dive in a way that you find out, you know, what are my values? What is so great about my product? What problem am I trying to solve, or what what problems are out there? You know, if I'm looking at the world of, you know, what clients am I going to approach, or what potential clients, what seems to be the issues that are most important to my target audience. And I think right now, when you ask about my company, I think people are confused about, you know, where do I spend my time? Do I put all my efforts on social media? Do I put all my efforts on direct sales? Do I send out a press release? What if somebody calls me back? You know, how am I going to answer the question? So we need to actually have a plan in place that we have discussed, you know, what could be an avenue that would actually be a return on investment for your dollars, and what would be a return on your investment on the short term and long term. And as a business myself, you know, my own reputation as a company, I feel like it's 24/7. We started our business based around From Cinderella to CEO, and that platform is based around the morals of fairy tales, and how no matter what, after 3,000 years ago, the first version of Cinderella was found. That tried and true story of if you work hard and surround yourself with supporters and do the right thing, you will be successful. You know, you'll be somewhere along the line happily ever after. So that's the core of our business. And so a reputation that you want to cultivate starts with not only deciding what that is, but then the actions that you take.
You know, that brings up a very good point, which is your book, From Cinderella to CEO. And it's such a powerful book, one of my favorites. And I know that you are relaunching the book this fall with some new updates and some new insights. And I'd love to have you just give us a quick synopsis of what are the biggest takeaways that people get from reading the book.
Did you notice how I slipped that in there? Thank you.
I did.
You're
so good at that.
Well,
somebody would think you were in PR or something.
Yeah, somebody would think that. It is a great title. It is a great book. And what I'm doing now, because the book's been translated into 10 languages and has resonated in particular in other cultures, I'm taking the fact that the first version of the book, get ready now, because hopefully some of you were around then, but 10 years ago was when the first version of the book came out. So now I've been interviewing the people who were originally quoted in the book to find out how their lives have evolved. Many of them CEOs now of very, very large companies were just starting out when I interviewed them 10 years ago. And seeing what's different now, interviewing new CEOs, people who are on the path now to be CEOs themselves, it's really exciting. So thank you for asking. And different technology platforms that we're building in place to support not just the book when it comes out. I mean, it's a layer upon layer, and it's all interwoven, and it's kind of hard, but it's exciting. It's really exciting.
That is great. I can't wait to get a copy of the new book. But I do want to get back to with the reputation, because as you say, you're lucky enough to actually get the attention of a journalist. You're fortunate enough to collaborate on a story that they want to write. They actually get the story written, it's in the can, the interview's done, and hopefully it eventually gets published.
Mm-hmm.
As a small business owner or entrepreneur, what do you recommend people do to help publicize that segment that you were so fortunate to receive?
So once you actually have received the media coverage and you want to promote it and send it out, oh, fantastic. Good question. The media love that. And why wouldn't they? It's their product. So posting, copying the link, and you can use Bitly if you've never used bitly.com, bitly.com, to shorten your links. And then you can keep track of how many people click on that link. Putting it on your LinkedIn profile, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. What am I forgetting? Google Google Plus, which I'm starting to really like, thanks to Elaine. Every platform, and also your emails that you send out to potential clients. I'm not as good at that. I need to be better at that. And also, Elaine, I think you use this in your signature line for your emails. That's a really good thing. I think it's good to have that checklist because we get so busy. If you can create a checklist that for anything we do, right, that we're trying to scale up, it's a great thing to have that checklist in mind. Once you get the media coverage, how you can amplify it through those additional links.
That's great.
Great question.
That is great. Well, I'm going to move on to the fourth segment of how you create value for your clients, which is the revenue. Yes, you want to create an incredibly rewarding experience, and then you want to build relationships. Then you want to honor their reputation and help expand your reputation, help your clients expand your reputation. And then when those three things are in place, the revenue comes in. And I like to think about revenue a little differently than a lot of people do. First thing, I want to look at how does what you do create more money for your clients? How are you actually building more revenue for your clients, Cary?
Well, great question. My client I just mentioned a minute ago, Cary Broussard, who wrote the book, The Complete Family Office Handbook, published by Wiley and Bloomberg, because she hired us, I like to think. We were a big part of it. Helped her get her media coverage and built her website and made calls on her behalf and got an interview for her on NPR. They've just asked her, and it was within 6 months. She sold out her first edition of her book, and now they want her to write another book and publish her second book. So building up that equity we had a plan. Kirby's very good at planning, and we love that. So, and we also together, it's not just working separately, like, hello client, we're going to do this, so do it. It's really working hand in hand with the client more than ever before. That I think that because people do have knowledge, they've gotten more hands-on expertise with the tools. So The ROI comes in with, also along the way, I think, Elaine, in that you can learn from your client or you can learn from the social media platforms as you're going along moving the needle. So there's that learning ROI that I think is really exciting in this field right now, whereas I think it scared a lot of people in the beginning. A lot of people lost their jobs, in journalism because the platforms changed and communications people have had to reinvent. And so it's a disrupted field. So the ROI had to go someplace, right? The ROI goes into the learning and then applying your learning. But there is constant, it's either publish or perish. You've heard that term. It's always been used in the academic world, but it's literally now almost, the term citizen journalist is becoming a pretty common term. It is the ROI of you've got to have a platform if you have a product and a service, or if you want to be in the communication field and be known. These are ways to do it. You could actually, as you're doing, Elaine, creating your own program. I love it. I know I can answer that question for a lengthy amount of time. But
yeah, you did. You did. And actually, I want to reference something that another great guest of ours mentioned, because I asked this question of Professor Metz, who is a fabulous journalist. Hopefully, Professor Metz is actually watching today. And he writes for theexaminer.com. And when I asked him this question, he said, well, frankly, when you're talking to a journalist, you are talking to the money. Because we have the audience, we have the followers. If you're trying to reach that audience, you get there through us. So you're talking to the money when you're talking to the media. And I loved that soundbite. I thought that was brilliant. Now,
that's
the second, I know, feel free to steal that because I think it was really, really good.
No, I think that's interesting. And there's another one that I've heard, one that the consumer or the public now is also talking to money, right? Because you can go straight to, you don't have to go through a journalist, but that also can be said that you don't pick fights with those who buy their ink by the barrel, which is another great, ink is not necessarily something obviously you use electronically now, but it is, very important. The Amazon just bought the Washington Post, so it's a hybrid. You're definitely talking money in such a complex way, but if you don't deviate from really the truth and the authenticity and being a resource, you're going to get respect of money, meaning the sort of the non-biased money. I like to think is a really good. I like to think media like that.
Absolutely. Well, after I want you to ask about how do you help your clients make more money, and obviously you do by getting them those connections with journalists and helping them position themselves effectively so that they have a much better communication with their prospects and they're more likely to get new business. So that's how you help them make more money. Now, how do you help them save more money? I think you alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about some of the new tools and new technology.
Yeah, I think saving money is not wasting time, not wasting their time, not going down a path, as we call a rabbit hole, not going down a rabbit hole because the client may think that's the way they need to go, but it isn't always the right way because the client or the product owner thinks that's the way they should go. I think that's a great way to save someone money, is speaking up about strategy, speaking up about have you done the research, have you found out that this is the way you need to go. You're about to spend $5,000 or $500 to do this, but have you thought about doing it this way? Even if it helps you prove that that's the right way to go, to be that sounding board as an expert is really key, I think, in saving someone's money, and also being an expert takes learning, and I think saving your client's money is being knowledgeable about your product. There are times when I'm sitting in the room with a technology person or a social media person, and I hear them say something. They sound so right. They sound so convincing. But I know enough that I know how to manage them in a way that I know how to ask the right questions. And that is saving a client or yourself money when you know how to ask the right questions.
That is so true. That's so true. Money is very much associated with the time that you have to spend. And there's something called frequently asked questions that most people ask. And then there's the should be asking questions. And that's what an expert can bring to the table. They've got the insight that you don't have. That's why it's so valuable to work with somebody like Cary when you're trying to do more PR for your business. Well, Cary, I want to talk about the third type of revenue, which is how do you make your clients feel like $1,000,000?
Well, Elaine, you taught me a lot about this. Besides just, loving on them.
That's always
good. We've done some fun things. We've sent some. I love this one myself. And if Will Bedwell's on the line or listening, he's one of I want to just shout out to him. He works with us at Broussard Global. I think Jack Magid, it might be on the line or might be listening as well, watching. But in particular, Will helped us give a surprise to one of our clients who just got a new position, was just promoted. And so we sent this particular client, Will helped us package it and deliver it, a Pharrell Williams Happy Hat that had a CD with it. With the "We're So Happy for You," song, and just basically delivered that. Here's this, whether it embarrassed him or not, it was just that we wanted him to be aware of how happy we were for him. And so that was one of the ways. That's something that we like to do, is if a client has success personally or professionally, just be there for them, and know ideally that we want to be a strategic partner. We don't want to just be a one-off project person, or I don't want to be the only person in my company that's being utilized. We work with Capital One. My company is part of a program that Count Me In produces with, in Dallas they're doing this with, Capital One is funding it, and they actually have funded a program that helps women entrepreneurs who are either veterans or are related to veterans grow their businesses. And so that one-on-one coaching that Capital One is enabling all of us to get is a great brand equity build for Capital One, because they're helping grow their target market who are growing businesses. So I kind of made a leap of faith and a connection there, but I just wanted to mention that because they've really, set the bar, I think, for helping women veterans and people who have had a veteran in their family.
Cary, you actually just did a really great job of one of the ways that you can make your clients feel like $1,000,000. You acknowledge them. You acknowledge them. You acknowledge what they're doing that makes a difference. Because one of the biggest challenges that I think everybody suffers from is you're so close to what you're working on, you don't always recognize the progress that you're making. And sometimes it's easier for you, the expert, to look at your clients and know where they started and be able to see how much progress they've made, and just to acknowledge them and help them focus on their wins and help them celebrate. That's so important. We don't do enough of that in our society, and we tend to ignore the little things. But guess what? The big things come from the little things. That's what the big things are made up of, right?
Yeah, those are the things that we remember. I agree. Especially when you're having a tough time. If somebody reaches out to you, when things are not so great. I also think that there's an opportunity for all of us to look at that, with our employees, or with our colleagues. It's like, when the times get tough and stressful, what can we do to help each other through those tough times? So, that's what I remember.
Well, Cary, this has been so great. I have just one question left for you, and I think it's probably the hardest question I ever ask anybody. That question is, if there's something that I did not bother to ask you, what would be a question that you would like to answer to just close out our interview today?
Well, I'd like to ask you a question, Elaine.
Turnabout's fair play.
How are the Google Hangouts working for you? And people online I know who maybe want to know more about how to run a Google Hangout, or is it difficult? What'd you do? How'd you end up doing 5% Succeed on Google Hangout?
Okay, that's a great question and very fair. So I also need to make sure that I introduce my team. I try to do that at the beginning of the show, and half the time I forget. I'm very fortunate to be joined by the lovely Debbie Davis. Please wave, Debbie. There she is, who's moved out, and my incredibly handsome husband, Elaine Starling. These two are, thank you, honey. These two are my Hangout producers, and what they do is they're focused on the comments that are coming in on the events page. People can ask questions of me or of my guest, and I really need to be focused on you, Cary. I've got to be totally one-on-one with you and in the zone on what you're saying, so I can pick up on some of your sound bites, so I can emphasize some of the points that you make, because you're so brilliant. And I really want to make sure that people notice the critical, important things that you're saying. So I've got to be focused on you. And by having Dane and Debbie looking at what's going on the event page, they can call my attention to any questions that people have, so we can actually involve the audience in the conversation. The thing that I love about Google Hangouts is that the recorded show remains forever. I've got a video editor who edits the show for me, puts the intro, the outro, the theme music, all the lovely stuff, so takes out hiccups and little problems that we might have, so we look beautiful. And then if anybody has a question later, they see the recorded show, they can ask a question there. And as long as they flag you by doing plus Cary Broussard or me plus Elaine Starling, we'll be notified of their question, and we can get back to them with an answer whenever they post the question. And Google Hangouts are available worldwide. People from around the world can watch a Google Hangout. I'm really excited. I'm going to have my very first international guest with me on November 5th. So this is an incredible platform where, yes, you can connect with outstanding experts like Cary Broussard and others to get insights into their approach and their ideas, their favorite tools, tips, techniques, tactics that you can implement in your business right now to make a difference. So if you missed any part of the show, I hope you'll take the time to rewatch. And if you have any comments or questions, please do share them. Thank you again, Cary, for being a part of the show. I can't wait to continue the conversation. And if anybody's interested in receiving Google Hangout training, that's something that I'd be very interested in doing for you. So just let me know in the comments, and I'll get back to you. Cary, we promised everybody that they could get a copy of your special presentation with even more great information. Do you have a website you'd like them to go to, or is there an email address where they could contact you?
Thank you, Elaine, for everything. Really, just been a delight, and your whole team. Yes, if we could give everybody my email address, and I'll also give you the website. Cary, C-A-R-Y, at broussardglobal.com, and the website is broussardglobal.com, and I'll post that later today, and I can email it to you as well.
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments underneath the video so that people can identify how to get in touch with you that way. And so if they just contact you and have the subject line be Y5 presentation, then you can know to send them the slides. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Great. Well, Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being a part of the show today. I can't wait to see you again next week. It's every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you then.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you.